They say extreme minimalists look cold, aloof, detached, almost unreachable. Step into their lives, and you'll see homes stripped bare, words spoken sparingly, and choices that seem almost inhuman to those raised on abundance. But here lies the paradox. What appears like emotional distance is, in truth, a doorway to freedom. It isn't absence, it's alignment. Not coldness, but clarity. In today's exploration, we uncover why those who practice extreme minimalism often appear withdrawn, yet carry an inner warmth untouched by the noise of excess. This isn't about owning less. It's about mastering the hidden art of freedom. Stay with me, because as we peel back the layers, you'll see that this supposed coldness is not a wall, but a form of liberation few dare to embrace. When observers encounter an extreme minimalist, what unsettles them most is not the bare room or the absence of possessions, but the striking composure with which they navigate life. It is this air of detachment, measured, deliberate, and unswayed, that often gets mistaken for coldness. Yet detachment, in the world of extreme minimalism, is not a lack of feeling. It is the pruning away of unnecessary attachments that entangle the modern mind. In psychology, there is an idea that human beings have a deep need to signal belonging, through objects, through stories, even through constant affirmation in conversation. But the extreme minimalist declines these signals, not out of disdain, but because they have learned to anchor identity internally rather than externally. This can feel, to the casual eye, like indifference, and yet it is closer to freedom. The refusal to be constantly validated by things or by chatter grants them a rare sovereignty over their emotions. Consider the Shakers of early America, whose communities were known for both their austere simplicity and their extraordinary sense of peace. Outsiders described them as stern, even distant. But behind that exterior was a radical independence from the pressures of conformity. They needed neither ornament nor endless affirmation, because their clarity of purpose carried its own warmth. Extreme minimalists today walk a similar path. This detachment instinct is not the absence of humanity. It is the quiet art of conserving energy for what truly matters. Where others scatter attention across endless obligations and consumer desires, the minimalist gathers it inward, shaping a life of profound focus. To those who live in a culture of constant display, this composure feels alien, perhaps even cold. But for the minimalist, it is the only path to sustaining inner balance in a world that never stops demanding. What appears at first as emotional distance is, in fact, an intentional shield, a refusal to be consumed by trivialities. Extreme minimalism teaches us that freedom is not found in clutching everything, but in knowing precisely what can be released. To the outside world, extreme minimalists may seem restrained in their expressions of joy, sorrow, or even casual enthusiasm. Their faces rarely mirror the dramatic waves of emotion that society has come to expect in conversation and display. Yet this, too, is not an absence of feeling. It is the discipline of emotional economy. In a culture where emotions are broadcast like a performance, often amplified through possessions, status, and social rituals, the extreme minimalist chooses another path. They do not lavish energy on every passing irritation, nor erupt in excitement at every fleeting novelty. Their economy is simple: conserve emotional force for what genuinely endures. This choice is not unlike the practices of ancient philosophers, who believed that the ungoverned heart was as cluttered as a crowded room. Take, for example, the Quaker communities that emerged across the American colonies in the 17th century. They were often described by visitors as grave, even somber. But what outsiders failed to see was that their stillness created space for depth. Their restraint allowed conversations to be rooted, their commitments unwavering, and their energy channeled into causes that mattered. What appeared cold was in fact a radical prioritization of sincerity over spectacle. Extreme minimalists today embody a similar economy of feeling. By refusing to scatter their emotions on every demand, they preserve clarity and resilience. They are not quick to anger, nor easily persuaded by shallow charms, because they do not allow themselves to be ruled by the temporary. This self-restraint unsettles those accustomed to constant display, because in a world where emotions are marketed as proof of authenticity, the minimalist's quiet discipline feels foreign. Yet, beneath that measured exterior lies not a frozen heart, but one that has been trained to withstand chaos. Their emotional energy is like a carefully rationed resource, spent with purpose, not impulse. What seems cold to those outside is, in truth, a strength. The power to engage with life deliberately, to meet storms with composure, and to feel deeply without being consumed. When people encounter extreme minimalists, one of the first impressions is that they appear distant in relationships, less eager to fill silences, less inclined to constantly affirm bonds with gifts, gestures, or endless words. In societies where intimacy is equated with excess, lavish celebrations, constant communication, and dramatic declarations, this restraint can feel cold. Yet, beneath it lies a redefinition of intimacy itself. For the minimalist, connection is not measured in quantity, but in presence. By stripping away the distractions of possessions and social performance, they offer something rare, undivided attention when it truly matters. The spaces they create, both physical and emotional, are intentionally uncluttered, allowing relationships to breathe. To many, this absence of constant affirmation feels unsettling. But to those who step closer, it reveals a depth that thrives in stillness. The Amish communities in rural America offer a striking example. Their lives are pared down, their words often few, and their rituals devoid of ornament. Outsiders frequently describe them as withdrawn. Yet within those communities, bonds are strong, trust is profound, and the sense of belonging is unshakable. Their restraint is not a void. It is the soil in which loyalty and genuine care take root. Extreme minimalists today carry that same principle into modern life. They are not driven to prove affection through accumulation, nor to reassure through constant chatter. Instead, they live intimacy as a practice of being fully present when presence is needed. It may look cold from the outside, but to those who share their space, it is often described as calming, grounding, and deeply reliable. In redefining intimacy this way, minimalists challenge one of society's most ingrained habits, the assumption that love is loud and visible. For them, love is instead a steady flame, not a firework. And while the absence of constant display may be misread as emotional distance, it is, in truth, an offering of clarity and permanence. What is withheld is not warmth, but noise. In a world where speed is mistaken for vitality, those who live by extreme minimalism often appear detached from the urgency that animates modern life. They do not rush to fill every pause with action, nor do they display the restless impatience that many equate with ambition. To outsiders, this calm detachment can be interpreted as coldness, as though they are removed from the pulse of human activity. But what is actually unfolding is a reconfiguration of time itself. Extreme minimalists live by an unhurried rhythm, one that rejects the constant tug of immediacy. Where most chase deadlines, notifications, and the endless cycles of consumption, they step back and ask, what is truly worthy of my hours? This deliberate slowing is not laziness nor indifference. It is a refusal to allow time to be stolen by trivialities. The result is a composure that unsettles those conditioned to equate urgency with importance. History offers us a revealing lens in the practices of early American transcendentalists. Figures who retreated into quiet cabins or small circles of simplicity were often labeled distant, aloof, even cold to the concerns of the wider society. Yet their slowness allowed them to observe, to write, to reflect, and to cultivate clarity that has echoed far beyond their lifetimes. They were not racing the clock, they were inhabiting it differently. Modern extreme minimalists mirror this same instinct. They do not hurry to please, nor bend to the artificial tempo of consumer culture. Instead, they conserve their presence for moments of depth. When others sprint anxiously through tasks, They may seem unbothered, almost aloof. Yet in truth, they are simply guarding the most precious resource of all, undivided time. What appears cold is, in fact, a refusal to participate in the fever of constant urgency. Their rhythm is slower, their presence more deliberate, their choice is sharper. And while the world may misread this calm as detachment, it is instead a profound form of freedom, the liberty to live not by the clock's tyranny, but by one's own chosen pace. Extreme minimalists are often misunderstood because the freedom they inhabit is invisible to the outside eye. The world sees their pared-down homes, the sparse conversations, the deliberate absence of indulgence, and assumes austerity is limitation. Yet paradoxically, it is through these very constraints that their liberty is forged. By imposing intentional boundaries on possessions, attention, and social obligations, they create an unassailable space in which the mind can roam, unencumbered by distraction. In psychology, it is said that true autonomy comes not from an abundance of choices, but from clarity about which choices matter. Extreme minimalists embody this principle. Every relinquishment of a superfluous object or every decision to remain silent in a world of constant noise is a deliberate act of self-governance. The cold exterior is a reflection of their mastery over impulses and external pressures. It is not a lack of life, but a life lived without unnecessary interference. History offers glimpses of this in the lives of hermit philosophers and solitary practitioners scattered across early American frontiers. Those who retreated from the hustle of towns, who walked forests with only the barest necessities, were often considered aloof or eccentric by neighbors. But in that withdrawal, they cultivated an inner domain of complete freedom, freedom to think deeply, act deliberately, and experience life unmediated by societal expectations. Their stillness, misread as detachment, was in truth a sanctuary. For the modern extreme minimalist, this sanctuary manifests in both physical and mental space. The absence of clutter, the restraint of conversation, the selective engagement with obligations, each is a deliberate scaffold supporting inner liberty. Their lives are orchestrated around personal principles rather than external validation. What appears cold to the casual observer is actually the quiet radiance of a mind unburdened, a spirit liberated from the tyranny of excess, and a life that is profoundly, unapologetically their own. Ultimately, extreme minimalists show us that freedom is not found in endless accumulation or incessant participation. It is woven through the deliberate embrace of constraints, through the discipline to say no, and through the courage to live according to one's own measure. And in that courage, the cold exterior melts into a subtle warmth that belongs only to those willing to look closely and understand the quiet architecture of liberation. What may seem at first glance as coldness in extreme minimalists is, upon closer observation, a profound expression of freedom. From their detachment instinct, through the disciplined management of emotion, the careful cultivation of meaningful intimacy, the mastery of unhurried time, to the ultimate liberation forged through constraints, they reveal a life unbound by the noise, distractions, and expectations that overwhelm most of us. What is mistaken for distance is, in reality, a sanctuary of clarity, focus, and inner sovereignty. Extreme minimalism invites us to ask, what attachments are truly necessary, and which weigh us down without purpose? It challenges the assumption that busyness, accumulation, and constant display are signs of vitality. Instead, it offers a quieter, sturdier path, one where freedom is not the absence of responsibility, but the intentional choice of what we allow to occupy our mind, our space, and our hearts. If you felt the pull of modern life too heavily, if the noise, the clutter, or the endless urgencies have dulled your focus, take a moment to reflect on the lessons of extreme minimalism. Observe not just the emptiness, but the freedom it holds. And if you wish to explore more pathways to clarity, intentional living, and the philosophy behind living with less, Subscribe now and join a community dedicated to discovering what it truly means to live free. The world may misunderstand your quiet strength, but like the extreme minimalist, you can choose not to bend to expectation, and in doing so, find a freedom that most never experience.